Good morning. My name is Katie Domrat. I am the Adult Programs Coordinator at the VMFA, and today it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Izzie Fuqua, the Interpretation and Digital Project Coordinator, as well as the educator for the Whitfield Lovell exhibition, to talk today about a few pieces relating to the exhibition. But with that, I will pass it off to Izzie.
Thank you so much, Katie. Good morning, everybody. Like Katie said, my name is Izzie Fuqua, and I had the pleasure of working with Alexis Assam, the coordinating curator for the VMFA on the Whitfield Lovell Passages exhibition. It is an exhibition that was conceptualized by the American Federation of the Arts and will be traveling throughout the country. So I hope you don't miss it here, but if you're tuning in from somewhere else, check out the AFA website. It's going all over and it's well worth the drive to come see it. So like our 3 and 30s do, I will be focusing on objects in the permanent collection that reference works in the special exhibition. So if you're able to come visit Whitfield Lovell Passages at VMFA, I will make direct connections to those works in the exhibition, but maybe stop in our permanent collection galleries too to find these other objects. You might notice a slight title change. I gave this talk on Tuesday to our in-person attendees, and in the conversation I found I was talking about place always, but also talking about people. So I just subbed out that title. So we are going to be focusing on 3 inspirations of Lovell's in his work, specifically how he references photography, poetry, and people. So with that, we'll get started. We're going to go to our vaulted hall gallery, where our 18th century works of art are displayed. Here you can see they're displayed in what's known as a salon hang, meaning they're hung at different heights based on the importance of the artwork. The work of art we are going to focus on is right here at center, right at eye level. If you're standing in front of it, it's almost as if you could converse with this person. And let's get a little bit closer. We are looking at a painting by Francisco Goya, General Nicolas Philippe Goya, made in 1810. And this is a very classical portrait. We can see that he is seated, he is in military garb, very heavily decorated, that gold braid, those shoulder decorations, even that red ribbon around the neck. And he's not smiling, it's not casual, it's meant to be a very formal portrait. Lovell is a classically trained artist, and he traveled a great deal during his education. On one trip to Madrid, he was visiting the Prado Museum, and he specifically was wandering around, and his eye was caught by a selection of paintings by Goya and Velázquez. And he said he had a spiritual experience. He all of a sudden knew what the role of the artist was and what they were trying to communicate across centuries and cultures. And it had to do with the person. So it was at that moment that he realized he wanted to focus on pictures of people. At right, I have an image by Lovell from 2021. It's titled Red 1, and this is in a gallery titled The Reds, which all have these very similar portraits, similar scale to the Goya, actually. This is not a seated portrait, but a half body shown from the waist up. But let's just look at the similarities between the two. They're in a relatively formal dress, not casually presented, a very almost austere face, and this direct gaze at the viewer. So Lovell, from a very early time in his career, decided that he was going to make pictures of people. And we see that throughout the exhibition. The exhibition is not chronologically laid out. It sort of jumps around through his different artistic series, but something that is a through line is the interest in people. Wherever he traveled, whatever location he was interested in depicting, he would often go and find pictures of people to reference. And we'll loop back to photography as a specific inspiration on our 3rd and final object. Something I love about this pairing is that Lovell is focused on agency here, the idea that the people that he is choosing to depict are often choosing the clothing that they wanted to be photographed wearing, how their hair was styled, even how they were posed. This is something known as studio photography, not casual or informal photography. And so he often sought out this style because he felt like that was how that person wanted to be presented. And so he is furthering their story by selecting this style of photography. So with that, we're going to jump to our next object, which is in our mid to late 20th century galleries. And it's a little different. It's a sculpture, a suspended sculpture. But I wanted to have you think about material with this one. Lovell is interested in found objects and incorporating found objects into his work, and that's something that this artist did as well. Oh, I apologize. Here's a picture of Lovell at work in actually an installation. He is drawing directly onto the walls. Okay, back to that found object. So this is a piece titled Andean Kayak for Pablo Neruda. It was made in 1973 by the artist Rafael Ferrer. Ferrer is a Puerto Rican-born artist, but lived and worked a great deal in the US. You can find his sculptures all over the country, and he's very well-spoken. You can find a lot of his musings on his works online. But this piece, as you're seeing, is a boat. We can see the oar is sticking into where the person would sit. I have another view in the gallery there. As I said, it was suspended, so it kind of gives this weightless feeling. Maybe it's in movement, especially with the shadow on the wall. As you kind of move around it, it gives this sense of movement. But a notable difference in the seaworthiness of this kayak is that it is made out of corrugated metal. So that corrugated metal, meaning that kind of wavy pattern that you would see often in tropical climates, the dwellings that are there. So if you think about that, that metal being a roofing material, and that was intentional on Ferrer's part. He was actually reflecting on his own heritage growing up in Puerto Rico and seeing these types of buildings around. So the inclusion of that material was intentional. And then for Pablo Neruda, who is that? He is a Nobel Prize winner in literature, specifically from the year 1971, a very well-loved Chilean poet, but also a politician. So Ferrer is making this connection here, this idea that he is creating this work to honor this person who means a great deal to many people, but also reflecting on his own heritage with that inclusion of the corrugated metal. Something I found interesting when I was looking into this work is why a kayak, why a boat, and specifically what Ferrer is doing is he's reflecting on journeys. He did a whole series of artworks on boats and vessels that provided movement. And he reflected on the idea that boats can provide a transitory moment for people. They can move you from point A to point B. And Lovell is doing that too. I mean, think about the subtitle of this exhibition, Passage. It's all meant to get back to this idea of a journey, of something that can transport you. Not only is Lovell trying to do that for you, whether it's in his installation works where he's moving you back in time, putting you into these places. I mean, he rebuilt a parlor from the turn of the century down to the trappings included furniture, clothing. I think even in some installations, he included food. So he's very interested in this idea of transporting you. And that's something that Ferrer was also looking at. Now, the connection here for me is actually poetry. Obviously, Ferrer named this for the poet on screen here, but for Lovell, he is not only interested in poetry, but also song. And so this image, which this is it situated in the gallery, it's actually in the Reds gallery from that work that we saw with the Goya. So that's actually over on the right side of the wall if you're able to come see it in person. But this large rondo is called it's called Because I Want to Fly. But as you can see, it has a woman seated in very formal dress. She's kind of leaning up against a table, but has this stiff back chair behind her. The thing I love about this work is that she's gazing right at you, and this person, for scale here, this is a very large work. It can feel very encompassing, as if she could stand up and step right out. Most notably, there are physical blackbirds attached to the piece, and they sort of kind of come out into your space. They're perched on little twigs that are coming out of the picture plane. So this inclusion of blackbird, but it's called Because I Want to Fly. What's the connection here? And it is to a songwriter that Lovell greatly admired and actually ended up having a deep friendship with, Nina Simone. And so on screen, you are seeing the lyrics to Nina Simone's song, Blackbird, and just wanted to read a couple of lines. Why you want to fly, Blackbird, you ain't ever gonna fly. No place big enough for holding all, sorry, my screen, for holding all the tears you're gonna cry. Simone is well known for songs in the 60s that reflected on Black women, but also Black women's struggles in America during that time. So this song does have specific meaning to her lived experience in the 60s, and not a very positive one, right? You ain't ever gonna fly, so why you want to fly, Blackbird? Not a very uplifting song. But let's see how Lovell flips that on its head by creating Because I Want to Fly. There we go. So this is a picture of Simone, and he created sort of as a call and response, this idea of responding back to Simone's lyrics. So why you want to fly, Blackbird, you ain't ever gonna fly, Simone's words. And his title is Because I Want to Fly. And how does he do that? How does he capture that statement in this picture? Again, the figure is seated in a beautiful dress. Just look at the folds of the dress. It's voluminous and detailed. I love her posture. It's not exactly an easy posture or too stiff, but she seems very sure of herself. She has her shoulders set back. And again, if you were standing right in front of this work, you would be making eye contact with her. She's not looking away. She's not looking down. She's very sure of herself and comfortable and confident. So there's this wonderful connection visually, but also in the play of the words in the song that Lovell is inspired by. And Lovell is inspired by many different songs. He is a lover of jazz specifically, but the first work that you enter in to the Passages exhibition is an installation work called Deep River. And that is an African-American spiritual, a hymn, talking about crossing over the River Jordan, and he's making a parallel to the passage of people specifically leaving the South during the Civil War and crossing over the Tennessee River into safety into the North. So he does have an interest in song throughout his pieces. So we've talked about people, we've talked about poetry or song, and now we're going to our final work of art in our 21st century galleries. And this is an old favorite of mine, but I want you to pay attention to, again, the materiality of the object and how that maybe reminds you of what Lovell has been doing that you've seen thus far. So here we are, we're looking at a square object that has that similar material to Ferrer's work. It's actually rusted tin, so that coloring is natural to the material. And the tin has been applied to a wooden substrate that's difficult to see on the screen. In the gallery, it's a little bit easier, but it is nailed onto the wooden backing. And if we look closer at this figure right here, we can see that this figure is set out because of the individual lines that have been created out of the tin, and we're creating a form. So the title of this work, if you haven't seen it in person, is The Inferior Man That Proved Hitler Wrong. It's by an African-American artist named Ronald Lockett, and it was created in 1995. It was made 3 years prior to his death due to AIDS-related complications. But Lockett was a African-American artist born and raised in Bessemer, Alabama, the Rust Belt of the country. And he enjoyed a close relationship with another visual artist, his cousin, Thornton Dial, which is another artist who was featured in this gallery actually up until recently, but creates large-scale sculptures. Usually out of welded material and fabrics and paint, not quite so two-dimensional as Lockett's pieces here. But let's talk about that title, The Inferior Man That Proved Hitler Wrong. So the person we're supposed to be thinking of here is this man on screen, Jesse Owens, an Olympic gold medalist, and specifically in reference to this work of art, we're supposed to be thinking of the time he went to the Berlin Olympics in 1936 and won not 1, 2, 3, but 4 gold medals. So thinking back to that title, The Inferior Man That Proved Hitler Wrong. In 1936, we're on the cusp of World War II. Adolf Hitler is gaining power, spouting his theories of Aryan supremacy. And since he had a hand in the Olympic Games in Berlin, he initially didn't want people of color, people who were not of Aryan of his theory of ideal people at the Olympics. But the US still sent Jesse Owens along with other people of color. And what did Jesse Owens do but prove Hitler wrong? Not 1, but 4 times over. So Jesse Owens, for this act, for this display of superiority, he became sort of a mythic figure to African-American people. And so that's why Lockett in 1995 is referring to Jesse Owens. On screen is a very rudimentary drawing. I'm trying to show you this sprinter stance that Lockett is honing in on. We have his head kind of bent down here, his shoulders right here, going down to the arms on the ground, and then the legs are bent. So he's in that sprinter ready stance. He's like at the blocks, lined up, ready to go. And Lockett is intentional in choosing this moment, right? He's not choosing the gold medal blocks or where he's standing in triumph. He's doing the moment where people are not knowing what's going to occur. It's all about potential and expectation and what can happen. And Lockett, as a Black man living in the mid-90s in America, he was going through his own set of struggles with that identity and reflecting on Lockett. And reflecting on Owens and his meaning in his artwork. So with that, the connection to Lovell here is a focus on source imagery. I cannot say that Lockett was looking at this image in particular, but I think it's a pretty close read. So Lovell is actually a collector of photographs. He has thousands of photographs that he has personally collected. And that collection actually started with a family collection of photographs. He was visiting, he was traveling and decided to turn towards family photographs for his source images. So he wrote home and his dad mailed them off to him. And then from there, he realized, well, I need more. And so he started to visit museums or other archives where the places where he would visit and would find images of people who lived there. So here on screen, you're seeing a work of art by Lovell called Visitation, the Richmond Project, Our Best. It's part of a suite of artworks that were created out of a artist residency in 2001 when Lovell was invited to Richmond. He was invited here by the Hand Workshop, which is now the Visual Arts Center. And he worked with VCU sculpture students to create a number of objects. There are 2 tableau works in this very large scale tableau that you're seeing here. Tableau meaning an image of a group of people. And then there's also a installation work, the parlor that I was mentioning, where he recreated a room from the 20th century. But Lovell is heavy into the research here. He's looking into the place he's visiting. And specifically in this case, he was looking at Jackson Ward. So he actually visited the Valentine and sourced images for his works. Again, this is just an example on screen. He does not reveal his sources, but this is an image of a picnic group from the Valentine, and just looking at the similarity and his skill in being able to capture not only people's faces, people's likenesses, but their clothing, just the incredible attention to detail that he has. It's very admirable. But his photo collection only grows and grows. He isn't only interested in studio photography like this one, where people are perhaps selecting the photographer they're working with, or selecting the clothing that they're wearing. He does have series of works that work from images that are more documentary, like passport photos or driver's licenses, mugshots. So there is a difference in the way people are presented throughout the exhibition, and that can be an interesting thing to look for as you're walking through, thinking about what type of photography he is seeking out or sourcing his images from. So with that, we have looked at 3 of Lovell's inspirations for his works. Like I said, this exhibition isn't presented chronologically, but the 3 things I provided you with to keep in mind, poetry or song, people, and photography, are through lines throughout the exhibition. So they are great anchors for you as you engage with Lovell's work. Go in and seek out those 3 things and think about where he is seeking his inspiration from. With that, I just wanted to leave you with Lovell's interest in history. He is known for saying he's not depicting any one person. He's not finding a picture of someone and titling it by that individual. And in that way, he's trying to connect us all to these people who could have been lost to the past, anonymous. He's trying to bring new meaning to them by bringing them into this contemporary moment, by having us come and explore this art and dialogue about it.
Thank you so much, Izzie. I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for everyone who tuned in this morning.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.